All right, so I think we are recording. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. This is my Greek accent, so please be patient with me. So today I'm again excited to have a return guest and a very exciting one, a man that I respect deeply for his innovations and for his mindset and the way he also behaves himself with people, his demeanor, something I want to replicate in my life. So having said that, welcome again,
George Wiseman.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on your platform.
Thanks for coming on and investing your time with us. So let's dive into the three main subjects of the day today. I would love us to talk, first of all, a little bit about the nature of water and specifically also maybe additionally about different kinds of water that people, have access to and maybe they have no awareness of, like spring water, maybe the dangers of tap water, filtered water, distilled water, how much water to drink, electrolytes maybe. So whatever you think you can add to the conversation, George, please enlighten us.
Okay, well, how about you remember that list because that's longer than my three things that I can never remember. Okay, so first we'll say water is essential to life. If you don't have it within 3 days, theoretically, you die. You need to have, well, what they call hydration, but it turns out there's actually more to hydration than just the liquid water. Now, I usually start out an interview like this without my cannulas on, but I'm going to put them on now, not because I'm on oxygen, but because I'm actually breathing Brown's gas. And Brown's gas contains a special form of water, actual H2O, that we call electrically expanded water. It's water that has soaked up electrons until it's become a gaseous form of water that is not water vapor or steam. This is actually what's called a plasma, the fourth state of matter. So with this, I'm actually inhaling some of my water. Now, what I personally do, just to say up front, is I have already this morning grabbed my bottle of Brown's gas bubbled water. So not only am I inhaling it, but then I bubble the Brown's gas in distilled water. So it's pure H2O. Wow. And then I put in the Brown's gas, and it turns out to be as healthful as like the healing springs that you can find various places around the planet, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But you can make this in your own home. So then I drink my Brown's gas water. I usually do a liter first thing, just chug it down, and then at least another liter during the day. Okay, so that's me and water. Now I usually inhale at least 4 hours a day and up to 8 hours a day. Many people sleep with it at night because they don't sit in at a computer like I do.
Jesus.
Hours at a time. So that's me and the water. All right. There's actually something called primary water, which comes out of the ground. The earth is actually making this water underground, and it comes out as what I call new water. Now, it turns out that new water can also be made, again, in the house, which I'm making an apparatus that'll hook up specifically to all the AquaCure machines that we sell. And I haven't had it yet. I'm waiting till there is many thousands of machines out there because this is really revolutionary. What new water can do is actually transmute into various materials. It's incredible. Just think Philosopher's Stone type reactions.
Alchemy stuff, then.
Alchemy. I leave that alone. I leave that totally alone right at the moment. But it all starts with this new water that forms out of the earth. Primary water is what they call it. And it comes up absolutely clean and pure and with no memory. Now, that's one of the things that's very important about water. I remember scientists quoting,
"There's nothing that we don't understand about water. We've known about water since the beginning of time. We understand."
But turns out science is a little bit behind a lot of these things that they can't explain. And unfortunately, a lot of scientists, when they can't explain something, they just pretend it doesn't exist. So things like memory of water has been proven in many experiments. And that's something we can get into, this kind of mind over matter thing you were thinking of as the third object. So beginning, spring water is good, but a lot of times it isn't primary water. It's just a water coming from a water table where water has come from various sources into this reservoir, and then it comes out in a spring. A lot of it could be primary water, but generally speaking, it's still mineralized and has some impurities, and those impurities may or may not be good for you. So spring water, that's good. Generally, it's the water everybody drank before the civilization became a thing. And then we understand that water needs to be pure, so we get into a situation where we need to provide water to our homes. So you understand that if you drink from a pond, that's water that fish have peed in, for example. It's just, there's lots of things in water and you always want to gather your water upstream from your camp, because anything that you're doing camping out in the woods, might go into the water, things like that. So in any case, you have to purify the water in some way, because there's things in the water that you don't necessarily want to bring into your body. One reason I drink distilled water is because a lot of the things that water absorbs, water is nature's universal solvent. It can dissolve pretty much anything. If you put water in a container of glass or gold, you will find little tiny molecules of gold and glass, because the water can actually dissolve some of that material. So water is pretty amazing for all of that. And then you can also, depending on what the environment of the water is, it absorbs much more than the materials. It absorbs the environmental energies as well. Like if you're thinking or have music playing or things like that, the water absorbs those frequencies and environmental things as well, which it turns out living creatures can read. Like our bodies can actually absorb that information and do something with it. Okay. Again, because that's why I drink distilled water, because the minerals may not be bioavailable. Like there are minerals that are bioavailable, like sodium chloride, which we know is table salt, and there's various salts and things that the body can absorb, but there's a lot that the body cannot. And then the body has to get rid of it. You've drank it and now, or ingested it, and your body needs to get rid of it. So I prefer not to get that in the first place. Now, a lot of people, highly educated people, say that it's not good to drink distilled water because it leaches out good minerals out of your body. But my counter to that is that, first of all, yes, it does, but it also leaches out the bad minerals as well. So they call that chelating. So it takes out the bad with the good. And then I say you replace the good with your food, whatever you're eating. So now you've gotten rid of the bad and you've got the good. Okay. So here we have a situation. Then we try to get some stuff out of the water by filtering, for example. And a lot of filters are very good, but they don't generally take out everything. And they can't take out things like hormones, okay, or drugs that end up being in the water. Because most cities, actually most of the population of the planet at this particular time lives in cities that have treated water. And the treated water, they just take the effluent that comes from the sewer, more or less, and treat it. That's why it's called the treated water. And there are places in the United States, for example, they're going to have a serious problem with their water tables. They're actually running out of water. And this is not generally known to the public. They're not making this public knowledge. But there are places that are seriously short on water in their water table and stuff. So they depend on this recycled water. And then anybody who's doing drugs or hormones or whatever happens to be in the urine and feces that goes out of a person's body, that affects the water that isn't necessarily entirely cleaned out. So again, distilled water tends to get rid of that sort of thing, because as you're boiling the water that makes the steam, it gets rid of a lot of the stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to just filter out of the water. So I don't just drink filtered or reverse osmosis water, because it just doesn't take out everything. Now, that said, that's better than nothing. That gets rid of additional things that they put in the water, in tap water, like chlorine and fluoride and other chemicals. Now, there actually is one chemical that they put in water that I approve of, and that's called lye, or sodium hydroxide. And lye is getting a really bad rap out on the internet these days. I don't know exactly why. I think they're just trying to get it off the market, because lye is used to make drugs and stuff. And so they stopped selling it in a lot of hardware stores and what have you. But lye is one of the things that is most important to our civilization. And a little bit of it is good in the water. So that particular thing where they adjust the pH by adding some lye, I actually agree with. I have on my website a page called Is Lye Safe? And you'll see a whole bunch of things where they actually put lye in food and of course use it to treat the water and that kind of thing too. So just kind of countering that narrative that lye is a poison that'll burn you. And yes, too much of anything is bad, but a little bit of what you need is good. All right. So they put all this stuff in the water, and that's one reason why I don't drink pure tap water. I do treat it, I distill it and with a home distiller and then drink the distilled water. I live in a city. I'd like to have my own well, but then even the groundwater has been contaminated by various things. So I'd still distill, even if I was pulling from my own well, I'd still distill the water.
All right. So my question to you, George, is you said about reverse osmosis, right? Now, do you have like concrete evidence that reverse osmosis filters that most people actually, to be honest, go there? Like most people I know, they usually go for the reverse osmosis waters. Do you have like concrete evidence that I can put down below the description and this? Because this is a huge point that you're making. Like this is humongous. Like it's not like we should just go past that and continue our chit-chatting. This is humongous. People invested money into that, and you say, distilled might be better. So can we a little bit elaborate on the technology of the reverse osmosis? Do you have any data on that?
The reverse osmosis is a fairly simple system, and I have one in my own house to get rid of the bulk of the stuff that it can get rid of. Usually they have pre-filters to get rid of the big stuff, and because the membrane can get plugged up, and so you end up having, and that's another problem with the reverse osmosis systems, is that most of them are not properly maintained. And if you don't maintain them properly, then first of all, it wastes even more water. Even the very best systems, well, actually, there is a really good system that wastes very little water because it keeps recycling the water that is going through it. But most of it, the water goes over this membrane. Some of the water goes through the membrane and the rest of it goes down the drain. So you're actually wasting quite a lot of water when you're using reverse osmosis systems, which I find to be inefficient. However, the membrane is the main filter, if you will, in a reverse osmosis system. And they call it osmosis because the channels are so small, it has to kind of migrate. The water has to migrate through, and that water migrating through these teeny little channels is just water sized, so anything that's bigger than water just washes off the membrane and doesn't go through. However, there are certain oils and, like I say, the drugs and hormones and stuff that are smaller than water, and anything smaller than water goes through. So that's why, again, it isn't ideal. It's good, and I have, like I say, I have it in my own home. Then I take that RO water and I distill that. Now, if you do that, you're going to notice, like you take your RO water, this is the way anyone can do it in their own home and prove that it's not purifying the water to absolutely pure. Because, for example, I hate it when my brain gets ahead of my mouth and then it stops making sense.
It's scientific evidence. It's called a brain fart, George.
Okay, so when you take your reverse osmosis water and you put it in a distiller, you're going to start noticing that there's stuff left behind in the distiller, which is the whole point of distillation, is that you're turning the water into a steam, and then whatever is left behind doesn't distill. It stays in the chamber. So you're going to notice now, just the other point I wanted to make is that they usually check water purity with something called a TDS meter, total dissolved solids meter. And unfortunately, total dissolved solids meter only measures ionizable items. So metals and things that ions can attach to. Oils and things that ions can't attach to or don't make an electric charge aren't measured with TDS meters. So any of that goes through the reverse osmosis or any water you're testing that has those in it, the TDS meter can't see those. It can't measure those. It can only measure a change in ions or electrons, which brings us back to Brown's gas water somewhat, in that if you're measuring ORP, which is very similar to the pH and TDS, they're all measuring these electron kind of a thing. Electrically expanded water has extra electrons. So when you bubble Brown's gas in the water, the pH or ORP meter is going to rise slightly. And that doesn't mean that there's more impurities in the water. It just means the water has a greater electrical charge. So this is one of the things to remember as you're measuring things, what you're actually measuring, because they infer something by measuring something else. So Tom Cohen, pretty amazing man. He's written a book called, let's see if I can remember the title of the book, something about the heart. And if you read that book, you're going to find out a lot of different things about water and how it affects the body. And it turns out that Brown's gas is the only thing that increases something called EZ water. It's actually an EZ gel. Professor Gerald Pollack's book, The Fourth State of Water, describes this EZ gel, calling it the fourth state of water, but it actually isn't water. It's H3O2 negative, which is a gel, not a liquid. It's not water, and it isn't the fourth state of water. Water is H2O, whereas H3O2 negative is not H2O. Like, no one would mistake hydrogen peroxide, which is H2O2, for water. It's not. So H3O2 negative is not water. However, it got the name, and it was a good name to sell the book, and it forms from water spontaneously, this gel. So when you have a hydrophilic surface, hydrophilic means water attracting, it will form on the surface automatically a layer when water is added of this H3O2 negative. And that's what they're calling the EZ zone. EZ stands for exclusion zone. So exclusion zone water, which is this gel, excludes everything but itself. So it tends to purify anything that's right in that zone. And there's a lot of amazing things that happen with this EZ, exclusion zone. Now, it turns out that our bodies are full of this exclusion zone gel. It's what plumps up our cells, but more importantly, it coats all of our arteries, veins, and capillaries, and our red blood cells are coated with them. All those surfaces are hydrophilic surfaces, water-loving, so they form this gel. Now, this gel is extremely slippery. So when you get the capillaries, which there's thousands and thousands of miles of capillaries in our bodies, when you get the capillaries, they're smaller than a red blood cell. So a red blood cell, being round, has to fit through this little thing. It squeezes itself like a sausage and squeezes through there. And if it wasn't for that very slippery surface, it couldn't do it. Our blood would stop pumping in our bodies, and that would be the end of it. But it turns out that our heart is not strong enough to pump the blood through our bodies. Whoa!
Yay!
This is another thing that science is just discovering, but they have discovered what actually happens. And Gerald Pollack, Professor Gerald Pollack's lab, discovered this. He got very excited because it turns out that if you have a very small tube with this EZ gel inside it, it will spontaneously start a fluid flow with no additional outside pumps. This is mind-blowing. So what happens is, and this is very important and easily seen by anyone who understands fluid dynamics, is what actually happens is this negative to negative, H3O2 negative around both surfaces, the red blood cell and in the capillary, it causes this spontaneous energetic flow. So it turns out that our capillaries are actually pumping our blood, not the heart. The heart gets the blood to the capillaries, and then the capillaries file it through. And this is very important, easily proven, because everywhere in my body, everywhere in any body, every single cell, from the tip of my head to the tip of my toes to the tips of my finger, get exactly the same amount of blood flow, the blood flow that's needed in every single capillary. How is that possible? Because in fluid dynamics, we know that any fluid will go to the channel of least resistance, which then would just simply pump around the heart, and all the extremities wouldn't get any blood flow at all. So you can see it's the extremities that are actually pumping the blood. Okay, so this is very important about the water, bringing it back to the Brown's gas. Again, in Gerald Pollack's lab, they discovered when they were testing Brown's gas, that Brown's gas was the only gas that could be introduced into water that would increase the EZ zone. Now, the EZ zone can be increased with infrared energy. They discovered this a long time ago. So if you shine infrared energy on a container that contains the hydrophilic surface materials, the EZ zone will increase just from the infrared energy. So the heat that's around us, and anyone who goes into an infrared sauna, This is one of the reasons why it's so healthful, because it increases this EZ gel all through your body. And the EZ gel, it like fills your cells. So inside, outside, everywhere in your body, you have this EZ gel. So the infrared energy increases it. Well, it turns out that Brown's gas does it as well. Now, Brown's gas has three main constituents. It has hydrogen, oxygen, and this electrically expanded water. If you put hydrogen in the water, no increase in the EZ gel. You put oxygen in the water, no increase in the EZ gel. You put Brown's gas in the water, which has the electrically expanded water, increase in the EZ gel, and sometimes dramatic increase in EZ gel. So only Brown's gas does that. That's one of the reasons that Brown's gas bubbled water is better than just hydrogen bubbled water. Hydrogen is good. We need it. We're 62% hydrogen by volume in our bodies. So it's our major macronutrient, and our bodies know how to handle it. We need the hydrogen, but we also need the energy, and we also need the hydration. And it turns out that the electrically expanded water provides both of those. You've got water that has energy that is directly bioavailable to the body. And one of the things that we've discovered, a direct result, is it increases this EZ gel. It's really important to get good water, which again, I call pure water, which many people call distilled, and then bubble it with the Brown's gas. So then now you have one of the most healthful waters on the planet. Now getting back to plants, again, we have a similar thing. They have this capillary action. You have a sequoia tree or a redwood. It's hundreds of feet high, but the water can get from the soil all the way up the trunk and all the way out to every little leaf because of this capillary action that happens. This EZ gel that is even in plants. All animals, plants, fish, birds, reptiles, everybody works with this EZ gel. So it's very important to get high quality water that is as healthful as possible. Now again, I have a place. You can go to eagle-research.com and then / plants don't lie. Okay, and I have a page there that has details on plants drinking this water. And it turns out that plants that are in soil, you feed this water to them, they'll grow approximately 3 times faster. They don't grow necessarily any bigger, they just grow faster, because a lot of what the plant needs to be healthy is already there. It's got the hydrogen and the energy and that sort of thing. If you do it in hydroponics, it turns out the plants grow 10 times faster. Amazing. If you have a greenhouse and that kind of thing, or you're growing food at home, in a same sort of space, you can grow more food because you can turn over your plant production even faster. There's a lot of people experimenting with that now as well.